was his first gift to humanity. And work is good, and faith without works is dead. And diving into what Scripture says about work, it's so beautiful how God created humans and how he created work and what we can do with our work to glorify him and further the kingdom, even in a broken world. And I know the enemy doesn't like what you and I...
That's right.
Welcome to the Fearless Faith Radio Show, which follows me, Mary Grothe, and my path as a Christian executive in corporate America. I share the highs and lows, provide scripture and teaching, and then interview influential guests who are walking the talk. I aim to help fill the discipleship gap for Christians in the workplace by creating powerful and real weekly lessons we can all learn from and implement. Welcome to the Fearless Faith Radio Show. I'm your host, Mary Grothe, and today I'm joined by an old friend, John Gallagher. He and I met through the branding company that helped launch my personal brand. You've heard me talk about them, Brand Builders Group. We call it BBG for short. John was so kind to have me as a guest on his show several months ago. I thought it was an excellent interview, very emotional at one part, which I didn't anticipate, but sometimes that happens. I was so grateful to be on his platform and to have an opportunity to share my testimony and some of the good news of the gospel to his audience. And now today we get to return serve, and I'm so grateful that he is here. Let me give you just a little brief intro on who he is, but truly the delight is going to be in him sharing his story. John is a faith-based executive coach, performance consultant, and advisor to some of the world's leading organizations. John Gallagher, welcome to the show.
Oh, it's so great to be on, Mary. I appreciate the opportunity, and I appreciate what you do with your radio show and your podcast. I'm excited about our conversation today.
I love that. Me too. Okay, so I know a little bit about your story, but I want to make sure the audience gets to hear all the details. So take us back as far as you want to go. The floor is yours. We're so excited to hear your story this morning.
Mary, thank you so much. And I'd love, even at a point where I am today, I'm not yet where I want to be, which is a good thing. I'll still be on that journey, hopefully a lifelong learner, both in my faith and in other areas of my life. But if I take you back, let's just kind of talk about that upbringing and how my faith has ultimately played a role going forward. I grew up in the Catholic Church. I went to Catholic school up through 8th grade. And ultimately, I think that's a story that many have. As I went through high school, I was an altar boy at church. We were those that went to church infrequently. And while it was a part of my life, I don't know that God was necessarily a part of my life in that space. Went off to college and truly lost connection completely. But ultimately, while in school, found my wife, who's been my wife now for over 30 years. And once we did get married, shortly after college, it was us having a discussion that we really knew that in starting a family, we needed to be in the church. We didn't yet know what that really meant, but that we needed to be in the church. And we were living away. I had moved her away from her hometown. We were living in St. Louis, Missouri. I'd love to kind of start this journey off. And she grew up in the Baptist church. I grew up in the Catholic church. We were married in the Methodist church.
Oh.
We were a mess. We had no idea really what's happening with regards to our marriage. And so we said, well, let's try, a couple different churches to see what's there for us. First time we went to Catholic church, we were there, and imagine huge old church in a suburb of St. Louis. And my wife kind of elbows me as communion starting, and she says, I'm not feeling really well. And we had people on both sides of some pew. I said, well, give us a second here. Once the line gets back to us for communion, we'll just walk out the back of the church instead of waiting to go on. And she didn't make it. Her eyes rolled in the back of her head. She passed out, hit the pew in front of us, and slid on the marble floors underneath the pew. And I was in a position, I'm like, I don't know what to do. People around me, want me to call 911? I said, I don't know. I was like, we're young, we're healthy, and it didn't make sense. But thankfully, she did wake up as she lay on the marble tiles there. And ultimately, she said it just felt good on her cheeks while she was there. Took her to the hospital. Nothing was found. Even her blood sugar was fine. But ultimately, maybe it was a sign from God that we weren't supposed to be in the Catholic Church. Wow. Fast forward a few years, we're back in our hometown of Roanoke, Virginia. We have a child, and I know when we took my son to be christened in the Methodist Church, my wife's grandmother's church, I just recalled him looking up at me as a baby, and I heard, the voice, whether it was his or not. He said, "Don't mess this up." Ultimately, and being a father, as a parent for the first time, as a husband, I just knew we were missing something, and it was something that took us on a journey. Really started on a journey for us inside of that faith space. For me specifically, it was one that I was uncomfortable in that space, and we were in search. And I know I put this in the story. If I fast forward a few years in terms of when we were looking, we were really struggling as a family. We had not found a church. We had moved again to Indiana, away from family, no friends, and we were in need of something. And I recall going into the grocery store, our favorite grocery store, and I'm checking out, usually in a space years ago when you actually had to check out with somebody who was at the register, not use the self-checkout, but I got a tap on the back of my shoulder, and the gentleman behind me had asked me if I was from West Virginia, because I had a West Virginia University sweatshirt on. I'm in Indiana. And I said, "Yeah, I am." He says, "Well, so am I as well." He was from town. He grew up in a town about 100 miles from where I was, but we started carrying on a conversation. And, graciously, he said, "So are you all attending a church here in town?" And I said, "No, but I got to tell you, we've been looking, and we're really in need of it. We've not connected with people, and it's just something that we really need." He said, "Well, I just happen to be a pastor of a church down the street, and so I'd like to invite you to our church this Sunday." And I tell you, we walked in, and we knew when we walked in, I had become a fan of John Maxwell and his teaching style, and had listened to him for a while as a former Wesleyan pastor, but they were teaching like that inside of this church in terms of the message and the fill in the blank. And I tell you, as soon as I walked in, I knew that was a place that God had kind of put us into. That was the year 2002. Both my wife and I, as we grew in that journey, had decided at that point in time to publicly profess our faith. So it was 2003. We were baptized by immersion in the lake outside of Sunrise. And kind of the story really started for us from there, from August 2003. To that. But I just loved, I think one of the books is going to be God Found Me in the checkout line at the grocery store. And I know that that's somewhat of a joke, but I still am, while I'm in South Carolina now, I still remain friends with that pastor. He and I stay connected, and I just always am very grateful for him and who he was in our life at that point in time. For me, I had been in the marketplace, and I hadn't even thought of really incorporating my faith and my work together, if you will. There were still two separate lives, but it was something that we were continuing to grow. I was not a reader or immersed in the Bible, but I remember one day I was having a problem at work, and I did have a copy of a Ben's devotional Bible on my desk, and I was having a problem at work, and I finally had said, maybe if I open this book, I'll find something there. And I literally just opened it, and it opened up to Joshua 1:9. And I couldn't believe it. It literally opened up to the page Joshua 1. And I read through that and found verse 9 where it talks about, do not fear, but be bold and courageous, that I will be with you in that. And I'm paraphrasing. I know I'm not saying that verse exactly, but that was something there that I'm like, wow, this book has some words in here that are a lot of really good wisdom. We became part of a home group, which again grew our faith as well. And it was something that we continue to move forward. I still know that God continues to work in me today. And it's really been in the past 5 years where I've started to develop the disciplines of being in the Word daily prayer in my life, serving in the church. So if I had to be in that parking lot and park in a certain space, and traffic lights had to be perfect for God to find me in the store. And I have something to do with grocery carts and parking lots now. I lead the parking team and the greeting team at church. I've done that for about 10 years. And it's just something that gives me an opportunity to serve as well. Today, I've been, while I had worked for large companies for a long time, for the past 4 years, I've been the CEO and founder of Growing Champions, which is a faith-based consulting and coaching firm, if you will. I myself and one other mentor, he and I work together to coach organizations through a process that we've developed through our teaching in both leadership development and in process improvement. And while the processes themselves do not necessarily incorporate Christ into those processes, it's the way he and I try to model, to be imitable, to be invitational, and to others that will allow them to see Christ through us as we continue to grow on that journey. And again, I just know that I'm still an infant on that journey. Some of your words, on my podcast for the first time, the Uncommon Leader podcast, where you shared your testimony, that's something that was the first time, Mary, and I know it opened my eyes up to God as well. Like, I have to share more of that faith inside of my podcast as well, and the work that I do. So I think that was a catalyst as well. You go back to that. I appreciate you remembering that, but that was breakthrough for my podcast when I started to really bring people on and start to share their story. So that brings us to today. And I know that God put us on that phone call with BBG together and started that connection as well. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's an incredible story. How many kids do you have?
2 boys, 20, soon to be 28 and 25.
Oh my gosh, that's so special. What have they gone on to do?
Yeah, so my oldest, my 28-year-old, was an exercise science major at Liberty University. He was a cheerleader for the football team. And so he's big into fitness and things like that. And he is a manager of a stretch zone right here in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And then my youngest actually did end up going into ministry. So he was youth ministry major at Liberty University. He's now in his second year working with Young Life in Boulder, Colorado, trying to bring the word to middle schools in that region, one of the most unchurched regions in our country. Hard work that he's doing, but committed to the work that he's doing as well, raising his funds to pay for his salary to do that. And he just got married in November of last year as well to a young woman, beautiful, full of God as well. So they are just thriving. I just, wish they weren't so far away, but that is what it is. He's exactly where he needs to be.
Well, you'll have to connect us after this so that I can cook them a really nice meal and have them come over, because we're about an hour away from Boulder.
That would be fantastic. Absolutely.
We'll have them. I do Sunday salmon every Sunday. I open up my home to whoever wants to come, but I cook a big spread. That's been on my heart to eventually open that up to the community and sit down with our neighbors just right here in the community that maybe look a little bit different from us. I live in a really nice neighborhood. I'm beyond blessed with what the Lord has bestowed upon us and in our lives and in my marriage and financially through the work that he's given me the gifts and talents to do. And we live in a really amazing neighborhood in a really amazing house. But I know that my heart is still with my neighbors that come from the same life of where I came from. And I think, as BBG taught us, we're always best positioned to serve who we once were. And I think about the transformation that happened in my own life and extending my hand out to who I used to be, to those people who are in that place. So much of life transformation not happens because someone told you to do something. There's a plethora of information out there in this world. It's the people who choose to do life and walk side by side with them and show them a different way of living, to let them witness what Christ can do in your life if you're willing to surrender and let him be the Lord of your life. And so I love opening my home right now on Sundays. So you'll have to connect us. I would love to meet them and learn about their work and help support them. I think when I moved from Indiana, we moved to Boulder, Colorado. And so I went to high school out there. And I would agree with you that it is very unchurched community. And it was very different than what I grew up in Northwest Indiana. Not to say that I grew up in the church, but there were traditional conservative values that were just a part of the community that I was raised in. Like, if we didn't go to church, I didn't know Jesus, but there was a conservative and traditional way of living in the community. And in Boulder, it's like a flippin' free for all. It is completely different way. So I hope to meet them. I can't wait to learn about the work they're doing.
I will connect you all, you and JoJo. As he's come to be known out there, not to us, but to everybody who knows him out there.
I love that.
And he's still Joseph for us. So.
Yeah, that's so special. Wow. What an accomplishment. My son is 8 and I'm starting to realize that my career, my work will have some components of legacy in it, because I'm taking on projects now that are very worthy in the name of the Lord. And I'm continuing to seek those. And I see something in my future where I'm going to be able to apply my marketplace talents and more kingdom work, which I'm very excited about, to continue to watch the Lord unfold. But in the same state of being, I'm starting to see my 8-year-old son and seeing who he's becoming and the conversations that we have and his independence and his decisiveness. He's an only child and we've only loved him through logic growing up. We never babied him. He's always been explained the truth, the way, the why behind everything. He's of such sound mind and he's a good-hearted boy with a great head on his shoulders and just continuing to nurture in that. And I look at my son as that's the real legacy. That is where, like, that's my name. That's my flesh and blood that's going to go on. So you must be so proud of your children and so incredible to see them now as adults. Like, that's crazy to me to think my son's going to be an adult one day.
I know, right? Yeah, you blink. I mean, because in that story of that journey, they grew up with us on that journey, all the mistakes that we made, but also all the blessings that we received in that church family that we got into. So, absolutely.
Oh, that's so beautiful. What caused all the moves in your early years of your marriage?
Yeah, I think it was a career for me. So it was more as a manufacturing executive where I started. I went through a manufacturing training program. So even as we got married, right out of college, I knew I was going to have to move 3 times. Hey, 𝐂𝐶𝐞 leaders. Hope you're enjoying the episode so far. I believe in doing business with people you like and trust and not just a company name. That's why a strong personal brand is essential, whether you're an entrepreneur or a leader within a company. Brand Builders Group, the folks who have been helping me refine my own personal brand, are offering a free consultation call with one of their expert brand strategists. They'll help you identify your uniqueness, craft a compelling story, and develop a step-by-step plan to elevate your impact. So head on over to 𝐂𝐡𝐞.com/BBG, as in Brand Builders Group, to schedule your free call and take the first step toward building a personal brand that gets you noticed for all the right reasons. That's 𝐂𝐡𝐞.com/BBG. Now, let's get back to the episode. My wife and I did Indiana, then Chicago, then St. Louis, Missouri. Ultimately, the 4th move was back to her hometown. My organization had a facility in her hometown. So we made that move back. We're like, we're going to be here forever. And then 6 years later, I was called to Fort Wayne, Indiana. Got a little bit cold there, but fantastic. Again, the story had been written. That was, where we ran into God, or he ran into us in the checkout line at the grocery store. I made that possible for us. And then we moved back again in 2006 to Roanoke, Virginia, and lived there for 20 years, raised our boys there in Roanoke. Now in South Carolina, after we've had a chance to raise our children there and got to a point where I was still traveling with work on a regular basis, I just need to be somewhat close to an airport that could get somewhere. My wife's parents had moved down here a couple years earlier. Oh. So when I travel, makes a good opportunity for her to be able to serve her parents and be with her parents as they go to the next stage of their life as well and need to be supported.
Wow, that's really beautiful. I love that. Okay. I have so much I want to dig into in your work and how you're serving people in the business community. I need to lead us into a very short break. We'll be back in just a minute. On the other side of the break, we're going to dig in. Plus, I want to hear about you bringing your faith to the forefront in your work and what that transition was like. Because I know that creates a little conflict for people, especially in corporate America. Like, where does my faith fit into this? I would love to dive into those topics on the other side of this. We'll be back in just a minute.
Every leader must learn how to connect with those that follow. Your story is the proving ground for real content that connects with your audience and moves them to action. Creator Spark is a proud sponsor of Fearless Faith Radio. To claim your free leadership content strategy session, visit creatorspark.com/fearlessfaith.
You are ready to transform your workplace and look no further than P&I HCM, your partner in building and maintaining the experiences your employees deserve. At P&I HCM, they take pride in offering cutting-edge payroll and HR solutions designed to streamline your people operations from recruitment to retirement. P&I HCM is your partner in creating a remarkable employee experience that boosts engagement, productivity, and your bottom line. In a world where only 33% of the workforce is engaged, choosing the right human capital management technology is crucial. P&I HCM isn't just a solution, we're your strategic ally. With P&I HCM, you're not just adopting technology, you're embracing a culture of belonging, appreciation, and longevity. Because when your workforce thrives, so does your organization. If you are ready to save time and elevate your employee experience, visit www.pnihcm.com now and let us show you why we're the driving force behind successful workplaces.
Welcome back to the Fearless Faith Radio Show. I'm your host, Mary Grothe. Grothe, and today I'm joined by John Gallagher, and he has shared his story of his upbringing and finding that faith in those early years in marriage and in the line at the checkout at the grocery store. I love that. God can find us anywhere, and he does. It's so beautiful, and learned about what his kids are up to these days. And now we're going to dig into more of his work, because you have dedicated this chapter of your life in a give back form through coaching and helping business leaders understand how to conquer the Goliaths that come into their paths, how to move the mountains, how to have the faith that really supersedes any understanding of how they can incorporate their marketplace talents, their faith into the work that they're doing. So dive in and just tell us about the coaching work and how you're serving the business community.
No, I appreciate that. And it's a question, I tell you, God's been chipping away at me on this journey. I mean, I can take it back 25 years to when I had a mentor who provided me with a book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. And I didn't know how to spell leadership at the time. I had responsibility for 200 people in a facility of 200,000 square feet that was shipping $2 billion of product each year. Yet I didn't know what it was going to take to grow as a leader and grow others around me as well. I was just kind of working it really hard. But he sat down with that book and went through that book with me chapter by chapter. And I tell you, as I learned about John Maxwell at the time, it's just, the pragmatic teaching that he had resonated with me as I did more research, had the opportunity to read more of his books, and then actually go to one of his conferences in 1999. And I'll never forget this. It was in Dallas, Texas. And I went with a friend, and he knew Phil. Phil's my friend. If he ever got a chance to listen to this, I'll share it with him. We walked in. He said, "This is going to be different for you. This is going to be really different." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Just trust me. It's going to be different." And I walked in, and they were playing worship music, contemporary worship music, like I had never heard before in terms of, I grew up in the Catholic Church again. This was really about, hymnals from the Missalette or from the book. And we all sang the same ones. It was the organ. And this was like, kind of rock music. And singing to God as well, and people with their hands up and things like that. And I'm just kind of looking around, and I just wasn't really sure. I was uncomfortable, but I was intrigued, no doubt about it. Again, fast forward that on my journey, it was 2001 that I got a chance, still staying with John Maxwell, got a chance to go to his house on a leadership exchange conference. My mentor invested in me and sent me to this conference, had a chance to go to his house for dinner, and he prayed specifically for me and put his hand on my shoulder. And again, very different for me. I was just not used to those kind of things as I grew in the journey, but I knew I was being worked on. And again, it was 2003 when I gave my life to Christ publicly and we were baptized. But let's fast forward that. It was not something that was part of my work. But as I looked at my journey, I had become part of a large organization, or IBM, as a consultant and as a coach. I had worked with an executive coaching organization who was coaching me that was faith-based. But I wasn't yet taking that into my work outside of being able to try and model some of those things. I decided in 2019 that I was going to get back into the workplace in operations. And there were positions that I was qualified for, that I interviewed for, that I should have received. Not out of ego. It's just that I know I was confident in my abilities and skills to do the types of jobs that I would have been able to do. I would have had to move again. But all three of those positions, I was given a no. In those positions. And they all three told me, we would hire you probably as a coach or as a consultant, but we just don't think that you fit in this position. And it was really then that I knew that was a moment for me. I remember it as the chair I was sitting in when I felt that gut punch of that third no that said, "God, what are you teaching me through this?" That it was him closing those doors and him telling me I was right where I needed to be. Fast forward a year, we get to COVID, and I'm laid off from a company that as a large company, stable work. And I had to make a decision what I wanted to do. And my wife and I talked about it and prayed about it. And we said, I think I still want to continue to do this coaching and consulting. So I started my own company. Look, I love how this played out, because you get there. This is before Brand Builders Group as well. So you get back in 2020 for me anyway. And the story of getting the website set up so you can have coaching and people can contact you. You got to have a logo. You got to have colors. So I went out to Fiverr and found an individual who was going to put my logo together for me. And I said, I want a tree. Oh, by the way, today on my time hop, a picture from 14 years ago where the idea behind Growing Champions was born with the tree. And the verse John 15:8 talked about ultimately we were to bear fruit in the work if we were in him. And that was 14 years ago today when that idea was born. But I sit and think about that from the logo. I said, it's got to have a tree in the logo. It's just kind of me. It's growth. I have these things that are going on in my life that I want to bear fruit. And he brings me a couple back with 3 trees, 3 different options. I'm like, none of these are clicking for me. The 4th one comes back that he sends, and it's a man coming out of the water with his hands raised in the shape of a tree, trunk, tree, branches, and leaves around the arms, which look like almost like sunlight shining. I'm like, tell me what's happening here.
Yeah.
He said, that's a man coming out of the water who's just been baptized, raising his hands and praise. And I'm like, whoa, that was real uncomfortable. And I love the idea. And I said, that's too much. And then again, I sat down again and I know whether it was an audible voice of God or not saying, you're either in this for me or you're not. And so I decided to leave that logo with that individual coming out of the water, raising his hands, with the leaves being the fruit that would be born on the work that we were going to do. That was back in 2020. And he's been continuing to provide so many opportunities for me to be in the life of individuals. You know, one specific individual, it may not be a faith-based company. Again, that's not really what it's about. But I was walking around with them the second time I'd visit, and I started to talk about my discipline of reading the Bible every morning. He kind of took a step back, and it wasn't, again, where I was sharing my faith to get him to hear it. He said, I knew there was something different about you. And I wasn't sure if he was meaning that as a negative or positive. He said, I knew God was working in you through this work. And that's built a relationship with me and that gentleman now for the last 2 years, in terms of not just in the business and teaching him consulting or, executive coaching, but it's also sharing faith as a big part of that. And I see that opportunity. I see that I am supposed to be imitable and invitational and really a picture of God in my work that impacts others. While I can't change other people's hearts, only God can do that. I can certainly be a vessel that allows me to have those conversations. And it's really just been in the past probably 12 to 18 months that I've started to become, again, I think one of the catalysts, Mary, was you being on the podcast, of starting to say, I need to be more bold in that space. I need to be more courageous and more overt with the fact that I do want to glorify God in all the work that I do. And I do want to be a steward of the resources that he's given me, and that I do want to make money, but I don't want to make money just to make more money, but that it's an opportunity to give back more in terms of what he provides for us and what he's given me over these years. So it's been quite a journey for me to take that. Now we work with organizations and we target organizations through the Fellowship of Companies for Christ International, who are faith-based leaders wanting to have kingdom impact in their organizations. But we do that by helping them and consulting them, teaching them ways to improve their business, coaching their leaders to be the leaders they need to be so that they can develop the leaders they need to. Yes. Teaching them how to put systems and processes in place so that the impact that they have from a financial standpoint can be more steady, more continuously growth rather than fluctuating, and allow them to have a bigger kingdom impact in the work that they do. So that's been an early journey for us, and we're just getting started. I really am. I believe that, I don't have any visions of retiring one day. I just hope that God continues to bless me with health and I can keep on that journey.
Wow. Okay. I love all of it. And thank you for the kind words about me providing that moment of breakthrough on the podcast. Happy to do it. I'm the fearless, outspoken. Yes. Don't care who my audience is. They're going to hear about the goodness of God and what he's done in my life. So I'm grateful for that. But specifically in the work that you're doing, I do think about myself as a young leader, being a woman of faith, fresh 11 years ago, and having myself go back into the corporate payroll sales job that I had before I gave my life to the Lord. And I remember how hard it was to step foot back into the same environment with the same team, with the same manager, but be a changed woman, because I was not real classy in my first go around in that job. I was a hellion and work hard, play hard. I was such a sinner and a gossiper and had a terrible mouth on me. And it was, I just didn't carry myself in a great way. And so going back as a changed woman, but then having to navigate corporate America in a secular company as a woman of faith, it was very lonely and it was full of temptation and there were challenges. And I know.
Did you enjoy the conversation? You can watch the full video in the description below. If you found it helpful or inspiring, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. You can also follow me, John Gallagher, on my social media channels to stay updated on leadership tips, coaching insights, and more inspiring content. Links are in the description. And don't forget to check out the Uncommon Leader podcast, where we dive deeper into leadership, growth, and action-driven insights every week. Stay inspired, stay uncommon.
Until next time, go and grow champions.